Hey, everybody, welcome back. I am so excited to have you joining us today because I have a great resource for your family that we're going to talk about. It's new. It's going to be just a really great thing for you to know about. It'll be helpful in your discipleship as you're parenting your children. And Clayton Butcher is here to talk to me about it. So, Clayton, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, it is good to chat with you. I'm excited about what God has called you to do. You have a company called CrossCurrent Digital, and I want you to tell us just a little bit about what it is, but also I want you to tell us why it is. How did the Lord orchestrate things to get you to the point where you saw a need for this and you started this?
Great. Yeah, so it's quite a story. So hopefully we're not getting too much into the weeds here, but it's a story that I think is important to know. Um, so basically, I was an audiobook narrator slash worship leader. God called me to start a publishing company. This is 9 years ago now, 2016.
Mm,
I'm like, what? uh, you say to do it, so I'll do it. But how do I have nothing? How do I start a
mm,
publishing company? Um, with $400. I mean, that's not the cheapest part of one book. Um, and I call it my Moses moment because very clearly the Lord said, "What's in your hand?" I said,
mhm.
"I have $400. That's it." Oh, but I guess I do know a couple Christian audiobook narrators, so maybe I can talk to them. And I had a connection with one of the big in the rights department, which is how you get audiobooks licensed, and so we were able to publish. And God used that to create Two Words Publishing. And we've published, I think, 150 books or so,
Wow.
audiobooks through Two Words Publishing. Um, and that was basically what we've been doing for a long time. Then God moved me out of the music ministry to do just the publishing. And then we had to so towards publishing is exclusively Christian books,
Okay.
audiobooks. So we do a few different ebooks as well, but typically audiobooks. And I saw another need that there were some books coming out that weren't Christian, but I wanted to be able to bring them into audio. And so that was really the heart behind Two Words Publishing is just helping publishers get books that were having an impact in ebook and print,
Mm.
even after a number of years, into audio to expand the reach of those books and the ministry of those specific titles. And so we expanded that to a general market company, which is Black Hills Audiobooks. And so that's our non-Christian brand essentially, but again, nothing that goes against biblical values. So we heard about a book that was coming out. I think it was through Colson Center, John Stonestreet, who we love, um, and, and it was a book called "When Harry Became Sally." Like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't think
Hmm.
it's not a comfortable subject,
Right.
but I
Right.
think it's important, and I think we need to be involved if we can. And so I approached the publisher and said, "Hey, we'd love to be able to license the audio rights to this book and publish the audiobook." And eventually they came back and said, "Okay, yes, let's do it." And so we did the book. It was again "When Harry Became Sally" by Ryan T. Anderson, um, and he had just become the head of the Ethics and Public Policy Commission in D.C. Uh, just after uh, President Biden was installed,
Mm.
sworn in. And so in February 21st of 21, that book was censored by Amazon.
Really?
So it was removed. The audiobook was removed. The ebook was removed from Kindle. Every seller that sold the book, it was totally pulled. New, used
Wow.
copies, everything
Wow.
totally gone, completely under the radar. Um, And so at this point, we were completely self-employed, and Amazon knows that we have multiple companies, Two Words Publishing and Black Hills Audiobooks, because of their whatever they know, which is lots. Um, and so um, we had just released, or were about to release, with the same company, Black Hills Audiobooks, Senator Josh Hawley's Tyranny of Big Tech
Mm.
and Dictatorship of Woke Capital by Stephen Sokop. So 2 books that basically say, hey, Amazon's big enough that they could do what they just
What they
did
just
in
did, yeah.
censoring our books. So how can
Huh.
they not remove all the other books that talk about this? And with Two Words Publishing, we have, I don't know, over a dozen books probably that talk about biblical identity. And it was so it was basically looked like everything that we had built, that we had been working on, the calling that the Lord had given us, would be very possibly be gone overnight. So that was February, end of February 2021. So we're now, as we're recording this, over 4 years past that mark.
Hmm.
But it was really hard, not knowing what was going to happen, what Amazon was going to do next. And Amazon is big enough that they can do whatever they want, but dictate the market as well. And so it's, and we can get into that more later, but so we were just reeling, not sure what was going to happen.
Wow.
Easily, with the flick of a switch, our entire income could go away. And the only way that we had to support our family. And so that was, again, really difficult. It actually took me probably 2 or 3 years to talk about this without
Wow.
tearing up.
Getting really emotional. Well, the stress of
Right.
that, that's a lot for sure.
Yeah. And that was just the beginning.
Hmm.
We had also, in our home, we worked with a ministry called Safe Families for Children, which in South Dakota, where we live, was administered by Bethany Christian Services.
Okay.
So the same thing that happened when Harry became Sally with Amazon, those 2 ministries, 8 days later, changed their statements of faith in order to place with non-biblical families, while
Wow.
still calling
Okay.
themselves Christian. And
Hmm.
so we had a dozen babies in our home over 4 years, including 4 sets of twins,
Hmm.
through that ministry, in order to keep them out of the foster care system.
Yeah.
So it was a great ministry, but basically we had to pull out because they were still calling themselves Christian, but not living up to biblical
Right.
values.
Right.
And so not only did we possibly lose everything, it could go at a moment's notice, but our main ministry is also gone.
Hmm.
And so we were just reeling. And about a month later, maybe 6 or 8 weeks, another ministry, Lifeline Children's Services out of Alabama, had basically come in and worked with Bethany Christian Services to, because Bethany knew that this was not, that change that they were going to make was not going to go over well in our area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they were working behind the scenes beforehand to move, to have Lifeline come in and take over a lot of those ministries that they were doing.
Okay.
And so the CEO of Lifeline came up to South Dakota and met with those of us that were in the Safe Families program.
Mm-hmm.
And so through the whole, I don't know, it seemed like an hour and a half. I don't know how long it was. It might have just been a half hour, 45 minutes, but it seemed a very long time. He went through and was describing about how biblically based the organization is, and how it's basically impossible for them to change, based on how they set up the organization. They had seen this
Okay.
coming years beforehand, and
Gotcha.
so codified in their the whatever it is. I don't know the terminology, but in their documents, in their
Mm.
procedures, that they would never they would never change on the biblical identity. So the LGBTQ non-biblical families, they would not
Yeah.
place
Yeah.
with those families ever. And so they only went into states that had state protections. And ironically, a few years before this, 4 or 5 years before, our local director for Bethany Christian Services had led and gotten state protections in the state constitution in place so that this wouldn't happen later.
Really?
But then
Huh.
their own organization did it, and so it
Wow.
didn't protect them. So it was interesting.
Hmm.
But anyway, so Herbie came up, Herbie Newell, the CEO, and talked to us, and I was just through that whole conversation, I was just totally blubbering, weeping. I was a mess. And so I'm sure the guy was wondering, what in the world is this person's problem? Is he stable enough to have
A
be
child
in our
placed with
program?
him. Yeah.
Right. And so anyway, through the conversations that we were having in the meeting, he found out what we did with publishing, and so he wanted to talk to us afterward. I'm assuming because of the publishing. So we got to have a good time with him that was really God ordained. And during that conversation, he said, "Well, I wrote a book too, and it's on biblical identity, and we are looking for a distributor because we don't trust Amazon. We expect it to be censored." And
Yeah.
that was the moment that right there, God said, "Okay, now build this."
Wow.
And laid it almost out almost word for word, to build a Christian conservative digital book sales platform so that the gospel and biblically aligned titles cannot be completely removed from the digital book space, no matter what happens
Wow.
in the culture. Literally almost word for word. And
Wow.
that was the beginning of CrossCurrent. And so we started researching, started looking at that. We had worked with most of the major Christian publishers already in a different
Okay.
capacity,
Yeah.
and so we're able to start doing that. And somewhere in that, I don't remember exactly if it was during that 8 days or after. One of our narrators called me in tears, saying, "Do you know what is happening in the industry right now, in the audiobook and narration industry?" I said, "No, what are you talking about?" There is a campaign to blacklist you and narrators that work with you so that they
Wow.
don't get work because of this book that you did. And there are threats against you and your family.
Huh.
And so we didn't know that, had no idea.
Yeah. There's a grace in that too. Ignorance can
That
be bliss in that.
That's true. Yeah. And months before, the Lord had led me, for some reason I didn't know why, to change addresses, legal addresses, and those different things from the companies,
Awesome.
and to just add a layer of insulation that I didn't
Yeah.
think was necessary at the time, and other things too. And so then it was like, oh, well, that makes sense of those other things that God had me do that I didn't know what was
Yeah.
going on,
Yeah.
didn't know the purpose for. But yeah, so it was a very, very difficult few months, especially, and yeah, it's still. We for a while we didn't want our names out there because of the threats against us.
Sure.
And so we were trying to figure out, okay, how can we build this and insulate our family to make sure that we're not going to be in danger because of this. And so it was, it's been an interesting road that the Lord has called us to.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that so many times we see what God leads people to do. We see the outcome of it, the products, the books, the platforms, whatever it is, but we don't hear the struggle to get there. We don't hear how the enemy has you in his crosshairs and just really out to get the families who are doing who are really radically trying to serve the Lord in whatever field, whatever God has put in their hands. And so it's good to hear stories like this, to know that it's not always easy to push forward with what God has called you to do. In fact, a lot of times there's a lot of resistance. There's things that you don't understand, things that are incredibly discouraging and disappointing. But it's important to remember that God is on the throne, and we may never understand this side of eternity, why he chooses to allow to have happen what he does. But he is good and he is on the throne, and we can rest in that. And so I want to segue a little bit into talking specifically about this platform that God led you to create. I think that it's incredibly timely. Although I wonder, and I throw this out first, do you feel like people have maybe a false sense of security, a change of administration? The atmosphere doesn't seem quite as negative against Christianity and things supporting Christianity. So do you think there's a complacency that has really hit families, and we've forgotten so quickly what was happening under the previous administration?
I would say likely yes, but at the same time, there's still nobody knows that this happened to us. If
Yeah,
if they were not 4 years ago plugged into the alternative media, the conservative media, those different things, it was completely ignored by
yeah, yeah.
everyone that was not in
Well,
center or
but the
right. And so
censorship,
there's go
yeah,
ahead.
the censorship and such, though, the bigger picture stories, where things were being shut down, websites, like Google was killing traffic and stuff like that. We knew about that. So I just wonder if there isn't this new sense um, of comfort that maybe is kind of a lull in an atmosphere where we really should not be so comfortable. We really need to keep on guard and actually use this time to reinforce structures that allow us to protect our, like you said, keeping these Christian titles, these Christian books and so on out in the digital space, while it is actually, there is an atmosphere where we have a little bit more freedom to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yes, it is easy to see s- uh, because of what has happened in the very positive things for Christians, for conservatives, that
Hmm.
has happened in the last year, or excuse me, this year,
Yeah.
with the new administration. Um, and so, yes, you're kind of stealing my thunder there, but that's okay. I was basically going to say that yes, we need to make sure that we believe that we've been granted a reprieve right now,
Hmm.
but that there's no guarantee that it will last.
Right.
And so now is the time to ensure that that we can lay the foundation solidly, that we can build out this parallel economy, which is thankfully you allow me to speak on the parallel economy at the
Yeah.
conferences. And so I had to completely revamp a lot of it just in the last 2 months
With the
because
new
so much has happened.
reality. Yeah.
Yes, which
Yeah.
is a great thing. Not complaining in the least in that sense, but we do need to make sure that as Christians, uh, freedom-loving individuals, that we do support these businesses that are
Hmm.
coming and support this infrastructure that we will eventually need. Um, we know the ending. It's
Yeah.
as far as with Revelation, but it will become very difficult for Christians to do business, to do all that. And I'm not saying that we're in those last days this moment, but still, um, we need to make sure that we are taking advantage of the time that we have,
Yeah. Yeah.
where there is less cancel culture, that we support it now, so that it's still around when
Yeah.
we need it.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
so early adopting is really I think important for companies like us, CrossCurrent, and other companies as well. Um, and again, I go into it a lot in the the talk that I do at the conferences. But there's so many more resources now than there were 4 years ago for almost everything. When we were building this, basically there was very little in place that we could use, that we could trust to not deplatform us.
Wow.
And so it is drastically better now because of, I believe, God calling people to build some of that infrastructure. But because he called us so early, it was really difficult, and has
Sure.
been far more difficult than if God said today, okay, now build
Right.
this, it would cost me a sixth of what we've already put in
Wow. Wow.
to do it, because it just didn't exist before.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we do again need to make sure that we are not being complacent, that we are supporting these Christian businesses, Christian companies, organizations that are providing services that we need, and or there's great alternatives in everything now, or just about every aspect, every industry. So again, it's I totally agree. Very important to not be
Yeah.
complacent now.
Yeah. What do you mean by parallel economy? I want to make sure that we define that term for those that maybe haven't heard your session. Note, if you are in 365, you can get his session there. If you're not, come hear him speak at our other events. Um, but what do you mean by parallel economy?
So basically, Christians, conservatives, people that believe in truth, essentially in our culture, that we should buy goods and services from other believers,
Okay.
conservatives, where possible and feasible. So that's
Okay.
the easiest way to describe it. But so instead of using Amazon for everything, then see what is around you, or other companies, ministries, whatever that provide those services, that
Yeah.
we are not feeding people that are fully against biblical values, which
Yeah.
if you've looked at the last 4 years, most people have seen it, but well, many people, I don't know if it's even most, saw what was happening with the cancel culture. And so we highlight a bunch of those in the quickly in our sessions. But yeah, so there's far more, again, now opportunities now than we had before. And there's we did put together a resources page on our on crosscurrentdigital.com/resources, I believe it is.
Okay.
And so we've got things like TV, so Answers TV, so video things that we've got a free trial there, and we also have Teach Them Diligently on there too,
Yay.
and things that you can use Liberation Tech to for a lot of different things, like Microsoft
Yeah.
Office alternatives, and websites and email alternatives, those different things, because you may not know it, but in the last 4 years, nearly every industry has had companies, Christian conservative companies, be deplatformed or
Yeah.
censored,
Yeah.
debanked. Nick Vujicic, friend of ours, is phenomenal. Smartest guy I've ever met, and he's just amazing. I don't know if you know who he is, but
Yes.
the awesome ministries and evangelist. But he was debanked in 2019, even before most of it started.
Wow.
And so there's now banks, which there were not before, credit unions, Christian credit union, those types of things. So
Yeah.
there's, again, so many more resources than there used to be.
Yeah. Lots of opportunities to really be very intentional with who you do business with and what you're supporting with your dollar.
Yep.
I want to make sure that I give you time to tell us a little bit more about your platform. Now, you've mentioned that it's an alternative, especially to Audible, some Amazon stuff with the books and so on. So tell us a little bit more about CrossCurrent Digital, and then also make sure that everyone knows how they can actually start with you guys. Like, What's the barrier to entry to test it out, that kind of thing?
Sure. So again, this has been a 4-year process to get to this point since that censorship. And actually, our apps just released in the last 6 months. Our
Hey.
iOS app, the Apple app, just released like 6 weeks ago now, or maybe 2
Okay.
months ago. So, been a very long journey that the Lord has had us on, but so it works like an Audible Kindle combined. So it's a purchase-based subscription. So you're actually buying books with your subscription, books of your choice.
Okay.
So there's a $15 a month personal plan, a $25 a month family plan. So the 15, you get one book that you can keep out of all of 16,000, I think
Hmm.
16,497 books today
Wow.
is what we have available so far. And there's a lot more coming. Um, and then so you can purchase any of those books with that credit, audiobook or ebook, so more flexible that way than
Okay.
the alternatives. Um, and then also we did just release a borrowing program, and
Hmm.
so you can borrow books as well from a smaller part of the catalog, but that in itself is up over 5,000 books too. And
Wow.
so you're getting 4 books or double that for the family plan, so you can get up to 8 books a month with a family plan. And so excited about that. Those updates that we have made since the previous year when we
Good deal.
were able to be at both conferences. Couldn't make it to 4 this year, but yeah. So there's that. And again, always adding books. We're adding books all the time. The streaming thing is so new that we're still waiting on getting contracts back. So there's thousands more that will come
Wow.
as soon as I get a contract that we can hit a button and then, oh, hey, there's 7,000 books that you can borrow.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's coming. And again, the apps, so you can do that anywhere. And the first month
Easy.
is free.
Easy. Easy.
So I do want to
Okay.
make sure that I say that. So crosscurrentdigital.com, uh, and the links on there will get you that first month free. And we can give you we may put something in the show notes that is a easier link to get there.
Okay.
Um,
That's perfect.
so that is something else that we can do for you too. And so we're real excited about that. Excited to be going to Pigeon Forge again this year, and so please look for us there.
Yep.
And if you want to meet me, I'll be the only one there. But excited to be able to be there, and I should say the only one of our family there is what I mean. We
You'll be
try to do.
surrounded by many others.
Yes, exactly. We try to do all the traveling as a family if we can. This year it
Yeah.
didn't quite work out, but thankfully we're able to homeschool, and that gives us that opportunity. But certainly been a blessing. Teach them diligently. I think we did the last 2. We attended 2 years ago, exhibited last year, and excited to do so again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we are excited to have you, and I want to make sure that everyone listening in takes advantage of that trial so that you can get in. It's hard to make a decision on something that you haven't seen. So the fact that they're offering that, you can get in, test it out, get some books, see how they play, get comfortable with it, and then remember what we were talking about the importance of supporting with your business these companies that are so missional in what they do. It just makes a big difference. And as we are in what seems like probably will be a few years of respite for some of the council culture and stuff like that he was talking about, we want to make sure that we are shoring up the foundations of these companies so that when things get tough again, which they are likely to do, like you said, we know where this is all headed. We already have habits built. We already have kind of our path set. We've supported these groups while they were building out so that they're able to support us when times get harder. So, Clayton, thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining me today. It has been just really fascinating to hear your story, and I think that the work you're doing is really important.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I did want to say one other thing, if I could.
Sure.
And you kind of touched on this in the introduction, but so some questions, some takeaways that may be good for all of us to consider, not only now but as we continue moving forward. But to what lengths will we go to follow the Lord's call on your life? Whether that is just to be the mom in the homeschooling family, which is an amazing thing, and we're so grateful that we're part of that ecosystem. But one of the things that, again, this has been an incredibly difficult journey for us, especially financially and emotionally. But one of the things that helped me was in a conversation with a friend that said, or I said, it was the conversation that helped me process it in my own mind. But what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice for what the Lord has called you to do? And so I think that's something that all of us can ask and to seek the Lord in. It's probably not going to be what we did. Sometimes I wonder why God called us to do this. In meeting with some Christian publisher executives, there was a question: what's your superpower? I'm like, I've got nothing. I'm just a guy that had a book censored by Amazon. That's all that I have. And then one of them said, the Tyndale CEO said, "Well, it sounds like tenacity is your superpower." I'm like,
there you go.
All right, I'll take that.
Exactly, that'll work.
That works, but yeah. So it's your place is not going to be creating a Christian alternative to Audible and Kindle, but being faithful in whatever the Lord has called you to. And again, like you said, we do have a reprieve for now, but that's not going to last. And maybe He's calling you to do something in this season that you think, what in the world? Where did this idea come from? Why do? There's no logical way that I should do this. There's no reason aside from God calling me and saying, this is what you should do. This is what you should give up. This is what you should invest your time in or your resources in. So that's something that I think hopefully may be helpful for anybody that listens to the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate your challenging us that way. So to all of those of you listening in, I hope that you are challenged. I hope that you are thinking about things maybe through a fresh lens now. How is God calling your family to step out? Whether it makes sense or not, He alluded to what was in His hand. God called us to start teach them diligently at the end of our first year of homeschooling. It was insane. We didn't know anything. We didn't know anybody. We just knew that God called us to go, and we went. And through the years, through hard times, through fun times, through all the times, God has grown us and stretched us and molded us and helped our family through so many things that just seemed like we would never get to the other side of. And all 6 of us, and now the spares coming into our family, all of us have these stories of grace that we would only have because we followed the Lord. And I want that for your family. And I know Clayton wants that for your family as well. So stay the course, be bold in your choices, be intentional in following Jesus in all your ways. And, so the Lord will bless you greatly if you do. I want to encourage you, check out CrossCurrent Digital. I'm going to give you a link in the show notes. I'm even going to talk Clayton into sending us a video tour. So if you want to get a good idea for what it looks like under the hood there, I'm going to twist his arm and have him send us something, but that will also be in the show notes so that you can get an idea before you even go over there, what awaits you there. But set up your free month, test it out. Make that switch over so that you can support Christian businesses in this time, strengthening the foundation that He's building on, so that when things change, He'll be even more able to support your family during those times. So have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.